Jimmy popping all that bullshit. I be seeing you, Jimmy talking about we Gucci boo boo here in the Gucci store. About we Gucci boo boo. Them Latin Kings was going. They was going. He quit. Jimmy looked like Manita Monera.
It sounds like he want to do one with 50 Cent. That's what it sounds like. It sounds like Jim.
Nah, I don't want to do nothing with that sucker. You heard? Leave him out of the conversation.
Jim Jones. Who is Jim Jones? Like, he's not on anyone's top 10 list. He's like no one's top family.
When Jay did the remix, it was the biggest alley-oop he could do for me. I understood a lot about music, and at that time people were looking at the wrong way, and I was looking.
This rare video, which 50 Cent released after destroying Jim Jones for disparaging Nas, shows how Jim turned on Jay-Z, going from calling Jay soft to pleading for a Roc Nation deal.
If I told you I was in a Roc Nation office, how would you feel about that? Huh? You think I was lying?
50 has never been a fan of Jim or Jay, as you are all well aware. 50 took it personally when Jim recently began boasting about how much better he was than Nas, and how he had helped make Nas go viral once more.
I did for Nas, probably never been done for him in his life. He's never been that viral act.
Furthermore, 50 just revealed Jim's lengthy history of treachery and snake behavior, not just his scorn for Nas. For years, Jim has flipped the script, alternating between disdain and surrender, begging and conflict, particularly with Jay-Z. The problem is that Jim insulted Jay for more than 10 years, including slapping one of Jay executives. Jim, however, crawled back to Jay-Z when he needed a deal, pleading to be signed and referring to him as a hero. 50 is now taking this opportunity to remind everyone of Jim's true identity. A guy who has no allegiance, no strong opinions, and no regard for the culture he says he represents. But that is only the tip of the iceberg. An entire story can be found here about how Jim's disdain for Nas backfired dramatically, allowing others like 50 to delve into Jim's past and reveal everything. Let us examine Jim's transition from making fun of Jay to showing empathy.
All ever.
Certain people shouldn't be able to say your names until they've done something in the genre of music. I've done too much in this music to even have to answer that question like Jim.
50 Cent is known for calling out phony musicians, and his recent remarks that Jim Jones was Jay-Z's lapdog after Jim insulted Nas brought attention to Jim's habit of vacillating. In case you missed it, Jim asserted that he is superior to Nas and even argued with Shannon Sharpe about how he can outperform Nas in the booth.
I want you to Nas, and I don't care what nobody say. I know I made a little boo-boo when we talk about the sales and all this type of thing. I don't feel like getting into that rhetoric about where I started and where he's finished. But listen, Nas was nice when I was in high school. When I was in 10th grade, Nas came out. Nas was dope. We appreciated him. He had a little bit run. But Nas always came up second to Jay and DMX and all these other people.
But lyrically, I'm gonna keep it a stack with you. Y'all ain't everybody.
You don't even be in the same places I be in.
I can be in the church house. You can't ever Nas lyrics. I don't know who told you that. Now look, you all know you're on that good stuff, but you're not seeing Nas. Well, you're not seeing Nas, bro. Let's be real.
You got a bunch of 40 and 50-year-olds in their panties because I said I'm better than Nas. Hey, I want run circles around Nas rapping right. I will run circles around Nas rapping right. But dog, right now,
no,
I don't know.
I was wrong though. Let me take my mic.
I'm batting around Nas right now rapping. Everybody knows that.
Jim doubled hard and boasted about making Nas relevant again for the first time since Nas' feud with Jay-Z, even though a number of rappers criticized him for being nicer than nice.
Ever. He's never been talked about like this ever in his life. You dig? The last time he was in some shit like this, when people were comparing him.
You now know that 50 Cent had to intervene and remind Jim about his own relationship with Jay since Jim brought up the subject. And this is what 50 did. He played a vintage video of Jim looking ecstatic and euphoric at Roc Nation headquarters. Additionally, 50 used the caption as an opportunity to brag about Jim, saying, "Someone asked me if I have more enemies than friends. I thought about it and said, yes, poor me, I'm suffering from success. LOL.
Told you I was in a Roc Nation office. How would you feel about that? Huh? You think I was lying? That's clear enough for you? Talk to me. Let me know your sentiments.
You heard?
You may believe that 50 is being petty, but if you are aware of the entire history of Jim Jones and Jay-Z connection, his post will have a greater impact. You see, Jim used street battles, diss recordings, and public jabs to hardcorely disparage Jay-Z for 13 years. However, when it worked for him, he went all out and pleaded for Jay's approval, and that is the main idea. Jim's recent jab against Nas is the kind of thing that will really backfire, because it is reviving interest in Jim's entire dubious past. But wait, how did Jim go from slapping one of Jay's execs and dicing Jay to pleading with Jay to sign him? Let us go back. It all began in 2002 when Dame Dash called in Jim Jones and Cameron to rock a guy. Jim even asserted that Cam was promised a position at Roc as vice president. Jay, though, never made this public. Later that year, Cam informed the source, "I don't even know if I'm a take on the role as of yet. Me and Dame are still talking about it, but I mean, I can have it. It's mine." However, as you can see, Jay approved this and informed the source, that's not taking effect as of yet. I think the talk is a little premature as of right now, thus the tension was present right away. Subsequently, Jay created a remix of the popular song Oh Boy by Cam and Jules Santana, releasing a verse that made fun of Nas. Cam, however, decided to remove Jay's verse and later stated that he was not going to let Jay to use their song to settle his beat after Jim, and Cam refused to release the remix.
You heard?
I did a little something for you in the studio. Then he had something to Oh Boy.
This is Old Boy's already #1?
Yeah, it's popping.
All right.
I listened to it and I was like,
And the tone was set at that moment. The sneak peek era began because Jim and Cam believed Jay did not appreciate them. In interviews and radio appearances, Jim began criticizing Jay more frequently and portraying him as soft and corporate, cut off from the streets.
First of all, let's get right to it. There seems to be some drama. You and The Roc, Jay-Z, you try to diss. You did diss him. I just nobody. You dissed him.
I dissed Michael Jordan.
Let's go drama, man. We're gonna get to that. Shouts to Dave Dash, who started Roc-A-Fella Records. If y'all don't know, he's responsible for Roc-A-Fella getting off the floor that started in Harlem. You know what I'm talking about?
Jim emphasized the difference between the raw, flamboyant, and violent movement of the Dipsets and the more formal, business-minded Jay, asserting that Jay was left behind by the streets.
You know what I'm talking about?
How about that, bro? All right, I said this, middleman, give me that. I'm on that, Jones. Kind of. Burning the streets up, y'all know what it is, man. Purple Haze coming out, my dude Cam album coming out. I ain't Roc Santana, he's slated for September. You know what they call me, Geronimo Craddock, Dipset, the new Black King. Well, no problems.
At first, Jay did not give a direct response, but there was friction within Roc-A-Fella and everyone knew it. When Jim released We Fly High in 2006, the song went viral and ballin' became a catchphrase.
I promise you this. Yeah, I'm sitting clean with the bottom hit it. A hotel, second things in my rock. Listen. What I spent about $8 grand, mommy, on stage.
When Jim eventually had a solo smash, Jay-Z realized he needed to reply. He released a remix of Jim's original beat called Brooklyn High, but it was an insult instead of an homage. Jim's style, his bars, and even his ad-libs were all ridiculed by Jay. It was dismissive, icy, and surgical. However, Jim retaliated with the beef mix, changing the tempo once again and slamming into Jay, accusing him of being weak, elderly, and out of touch. At this point, however, things became really heated and the feud erupted into the actual world. Jim was seen touching someone in a Louis Vuitton store in 2008 on security film. Later on, it was discovered that Lenny Santiago, Jay-Z's longtime A&R, was the victim. Jim entered a guilty plea to minor assault after being arrested for this.
Jim Jones, the rapper, is going down. Yeah.
Although Jay remained silent about the incident in public, the message was evident behind closed doors. Rap conflict was no longer the issue, it was intimate. A few months later, Jay spoke about the current status of rap music in an interview with XXL. Additionally, he made fun of Jim by claiming that songs like Jim's Nah Nah are to blame for the cultural collapse. Jay stated, like Jim Jones, for example. And I don't mean this because we never see eye to eye. He made Nah Nah. What's the difference between a smiley face replaced by Trey Songz and Soulja Boy, and Nana could have been called Smiley Face, Jay was now making calculated shots. Even though he might not have been on the streets, he managed to clown Jim without getting his hands dirty. However, beef became a cold war after this. There was only quiet tension between 2010 and 2015, no fights or diss recordings. But in 2015, Dipset overturned Diddy's victory with a freestyle. Jim and Cam both make fun of Jay and Roc Nation, calling the label business puppets, making fun of the entire brunch movement, and even making reference to Beyonce. Killa Cam rapped, "Having money doesn't make you a real one. You stepped on the court, you're gonna play my game. Just take shoddy advice and say my name." This was their method of trying to spark beef. But see, by that point, Jay-Z was a billionaire. He started his own streaming business, is married to Beyonce, collects art, and is getting involved in sports management. To put it another way, he did not give a damn about Jim and Cam continuing to shout from the sidelines. Jay actually mentioned this in a recently rediscovered video, comparing himself to Michael Jordan and claiming that Jim is like the 8th player on the bench yelling at the MVP.
Fighting was
Jimmy Jones. Jim Jones.
What's up with that Jim Jones shit, man?
Hip hop, of course, you know, is a competitive sport. But on the other end of it, it's like certain people shouldn't be able to say your names until they done something in the genre of music. I've done too much in this music to even have to answer that question. Like Jim Jones, who is Jim Jones? Like, he's not on anyone top 10 list. He's not.
Marriage Jay was only making him look foolish, and 50 Cent is currently making fun of him for exactly what he did next. Jim changed his mind and began pleading with Jay to sign him. Finally, in February of 2017, Jim signed a contract with Roc Nation, and he formally joined Jay's team after 13 years of animosity.
No one's top 10 list, maybe not even his family. What I was saying last night is like the 8th guy on the bench just screaming at Jordan, like, you a bum. Like, you want to view like the 9th guy on the bench. I'm not even worried about you.
That Jay's longtime nemesis turned collaborator Fat Joe signed to Roc-A-Fella, and now it looks like another former rival will align.
Or did he simply sign silently? He began boasting that Jay had asked him to his Roc Nation brunch. He started publicly praising Jay, the same person he used to disparage, and was simply doing everything in his power to demonstrate his devotion to Jay.
To a dumb shitty that no one is told the homes because the other thing is my blood provides the cheer. It could be my father God. Exclamation one that is in this pool containing in the sea there.
The same man who had assaulted his friend, accused Jay of betraying the streets, and made fun of him for being soft, was now claiming that Jay had always been his role model. However, Jay remained silent once more. There was no welcome speech or public post congratulating Jim on joining Roc Nation. After Jim joined Roc Nation, there is literally just one picture of Jay and Jim. Jay appears to prefer being somewhere else, even in this photo. When Jim was eventually seated at the table, Jay made it plain that they were not and would never be on an equal basis. Jim was just another name in the Roc Nation folder, which is interesting because he gained notoriety for more than 10 years, from 2002 to 2017, in part by boasting that he was not Jay-Z. He positioned Dipset as the street equivalent of Jay's business image, the antithesis of Roc Nation. However, the money ultimately prevailed, and when Jim needed a deal, the reputation he had spent more than 10 years cultivating fell apart. Jay-Z did not have to make fun of him. He did not have to answer. He did nothing except wait. Jay took the meeting, signed the contract, and continued the process after Jim eventually bowed. And that is precisely 50 cents. After years of disparaging Jay, Jim was the one pleading for a place at the table. Now, if Jim had not erred by disdaining Nas's legacy, most people would have likely forgotten about this. However, Jim allowed individuals like 50 to delve further and reveal Jim's lengthy history of vacillating and feigning allegiance when he did so. Additionally, the receipts weigh too much. How far will this fallout go is the issue now. Will the harm done to Jim's career be repaired, or is this the end of his story?